The galactic arena resonated with fervor as a myriad of alien species occupied the seats, each one thrilled with anticipation. To observe the imminent spectacle, this was not merely an event. It was a struggle for honor, respect, and supremacy among every warrior in the galaxy arrived here to demonstrate their strength. However, for numerous cycles, one species has been persistently mocked. People are physically little, feeble, and devoid of advanced weaponry. Other individuals have repeatedly failed each time they entered the ring. The result appeared predetermined as laughter resonated throughout the arena upon the announcement. Loudspeakers announced that Earth was dispatching a warrior to the alien assembly, already foreseeing the humiliation they had observed it previously and were keen to experience it once more. Whispers of incredulity circulated among the throng. What could these individuals possibly achieve? Surely they would falter like they had previously. The Zarth warriors, a formidable race of battle-hardened veterans, readied themselves in their designated corner of the ring alongside their champion. Exceeding 8 feet in height and encased in robust plated armor, he laughed boisterously at the prospect of confronting another human. It will be effortless, he snarled to his companions, yet another vulnerable element for the audience. Amusement arose as the gates on the opposite side of the arena commenced opening, unveiling the human warrior. However, this time, something was different. The crowd, typically prepared to jeer, instead paused, deviating from the normal visible response. Nervous individuals exited, revealing a solitary figure attired in gloomy, efficient attire. The armored warrior advanced with measured, purposeful strides. This was no ordinary individual. The soldier was a Spartan, and the derisive laughter from the audience diminished at that moment. There was an aspect to the manner in which this Spartan moved slowly, steadily, and entirely unperturbed by the spectacle surrounding him. His helmet mirrored the artificial illumination of the arena, imparting an almost ethereal quality. The aliens were unable to discern his visage, yet they perceived an unusual quality. The Zarth champion smiled broadly. "This is what humanity dispatches to perish. You ought to have remained on your feeble planet." The Spartan did not reply. Instead, he modified his hold on his shield and spear, instruments of ancient human warfare, while other species employed plasma. The Spart carried weapons and energy-based armor. The Zarth champion sneered, unable to comprehend that simplicity. Such basic tools could prove effective in the modern combat arena when the Zarth pushed forward unexpectedly. His colossal fists, augmented by energy gauntlets, descended with devastating force. The crowd inhaled sharply, but before the strike could connect, the Spartan darted to the side. Evading the assault with an astonishing grace, Zara's fist struck the ground, dispersing dust. The Spartan countered in a single, smooth move, sending dust and debris into the air. Thrusting his spear into the vulnerable armor of Zara proved insufficient to inflict considerable harm. Yet it served as a declaration. The audience fell silent. Mockery was supplanted by a communal recognition that this individual was unlike the others, as the Zarth warrior roared, frustration oscillating erratically once more, and each instance the Spartan was merely a step away. His motions were precise and deliberate, with no wasted effort. Zarth depended on sheer might, whereas the Spartan utilized techniques refined over years of human warfare with each strike. The alien attacked, but the Spartan responded with a precisely timed strike or evasion. The extraterrestrial assembly, previously resonating with laughter, now observed in astonished quiet. The conflict was no longer trivial. The combat intensified, and it became evident that the Zarth was exhausting his considerable size, which had previously been an advantage, but was now a liability. As the Spartan persisted in dismantling his defenses, he maintained composure, with his breathing steady. His movements were as sharp as at the onset of the fight. He was a predator poised for the opportune moment to attack. The opening left by the furious and weary Zarth created a vulnerability in his defense. Spartan seized the opportunity in a swift motion. He closed the distance and inflicted a catastrophic strike to the alien's knee, causing him to fall. The once formidable champion was now on the ground, struggled to rise as the throng yelled in disbelief at the tremendous Zarth. A warrior, a creature of strength and power, was subdued by a human. The Spartan stood resolute, his spear aimed at the fallen behemoth. However, he refrained from delivering the fatal blow, and instead retreated. Permitting the arena's officials to adjudicate the match as the Xanth was removed, the throng murmured in bewilderment. This was not the anticipated outcome. Humanity was anticipated to be defeated and humiliated. Instead, a solitary Spartan remained steadfast. Victorious whispers permeated the atmosphere, and for the first time, the Galactic Stadium no longer resembled a venue of derision. The humans perceived it as a precursor to something greater. The Spartan did not revel in it. In his splendor, he merely turned and retraced his steps towards the gates from whence he came, devoid of words or gestures. The composed assurance of a warrior who had fulfilled his duty as he departed from the alien. The throng, rendered speechless, commenced to murmur, possibly for the first time. Had underestimated humanity. The message was unequivocal. Humanity was not weak, not to be derided, and as the gates shut behind the Spartan, the observing aliens recognized one indisputable truth: humanity were warriors, and they were here to remain. The excitement of the crowd still resonated afterwards. The initial match revealed a transformed atmosphere. Previously, there was confidence in human failure, but now it has changed. Amidst the chaos, a nascent respect began to take root, however it was not fully realized. The Galactic arena needed more than one victory to reverse decades of dominance. The Spartan was aware of the derision when the announcement for the next round resounded. Through the arena, a new adversary emerged. This time, it was not only the extraterrestrial warrior known as a Vexor exhibited sheer strength. The appearance of confidence emanated not from stature, but from intellect. The Vexor were strategists and thinkers who utilized technology in manners that frequently overwhelmed their adversaries. The audience erupted in more applause for this contest. Aware this adversary would employ both intellect and strength, the Spartan's previous triumph would hold no significance in this confrontation. The Vexor necessitated more analysis from the Spartan, who promptly engaged its luminous eyes. Upon observing every element of his armor, posture, and weaponry, it became evident that the alien meticulously strategized its actions up to the initial strike, while the Vexor armor radiated with energy fields. Shielding it from any physical assaults, its armament was a sophisticated multifunctional device. Staff capable of transforming into energy projectiles or defensive shields. The Spartan appeared archaic in comparison, equipped with a spear, a shield, and possessing swift reflexes. With no hesitation, the Vexor initiated the confrontation by discharging a succession of energy projectiles emanated from its staff, swiftly slicing across the air. Targeting the Spartan, the human warrior elevated his shield, deflecting the projectiles, yet each impact resonated through his body. Assessing his strength, he took a few steps back to reevaluate the situation. Vexor smirked, knowing that its superior technology would surpass any of the Spartan's rudimentary methods. Spartan observed intently, observing the Vor's motions. They were not reckless. The Zarth was cautious, intentional, and exacting, whereas the Spartan was not. He exhibited patience, refraining from hasty advances or reckless assaults, understanding that too. To triumph over this adversary, he needed to comprehend it first. Nonetheless, the Vexor. He saw his silence and stillness as uncertainty, a misjudgment he was eager to exploit. Suddenly, the Vexor shifted. With a wave of its staff, it emitted a pulse that disarmed the Spartan, extracting the spear from his grasp. The magnetic field caused the spear to crash to the ground many meters distant, prompting the crowd to erupt in cheers. Exploiting its advantage, it closed the distance and transitioned the staff to blade mode. Lunging at the Spartan exhibited speed and precision. Nonetheless, he remained composed and parried instead of panicking. The sword struck his shield, producing a resonant clang of metal against electricity that reverberated throughout the arena as the Vexor blade deflected off. The Spartan shield persisted in its offensive, executing a succession of rapid, planned slashes and thrusts. The Spartan successfully stopped each attack, but the strain intensified as the alien compelled him to retreat. At the periphery of the arena, the crowd perceived that this would be the moment when the Spartan wavered against the extraterrestrial. The warrior was excessively intelligent, swift, and well-equipped for humanity's prior triumph. It was increasingly perceived as a coincidence. The Vexor detected this as well and intensified its efforts, anxious to ensnare its quarry. Although in its fervor, it overlooked a critical aspect. The Spartan was not being repelled, he was luring the Vexor into a trap. As the Vexor surged once more, the Spartan sidestepped and executed a rapid maneuver. Seized the staff, utilizing the alien's momentum to his advantage, he yanked the staff away. The Vexor stumbled, defenseless and off balance, as it was cast away and hurled across the arena. The crowd gasped as the Spartan, finally regaining control, retrieved his spear. The tables had turned, yet the Vexor was not finished. It activated a concealed device in its armor enveloped in a radiant energy shield that repelled all oncoming assaults on the Spartan. Undeterred, he advanced, probing the barrier with his spear, which rebounded. Harmlessly deflected, the Vexor laughed, convinced of its victory over no corporeal weapon. might breach its shield, deriding the Spartan and ridiculing the human's rudimentary instruments and techniques. Spartan remained unresponsive. He was not inclined to react to insults or provocations. Instead, he observed, anticipated, and analyzed as the Vexor progressed, assured of its invulnerability. The Spartan observed a flicker in the shield's energy field, a fleeting instant during which it wavered. All he required was to time his subsequent maneuver impeccably. The Spartan lunged with his spear. With remarkable swiftness, the spear penetrated the shield precisely as the flicker emerged, striking the Vor's armor effectively. The throng fell silent as it plummeted to the earth, the Vexor, formerly so confident. The embodiment of its victory lay vanquished, its shield fractured and its form inert. Spartan, breathing heavily yet still resolute, dropped his spear. A lethal strike was unnecessary. The confrontation concluded for the second time that day, as a human had triumphed over a purportedly superior opponent. The superior opponent left the crowd in stunned silence as they gradually came to comprehend what had transpired. The Spartan not only fought with strength but also with patience and cunning, outsmarting an extraterrestrial entity. Due to its tactical brilliance, this was neither luck nor a fluke. This was a human victory achieved through ability and effort. When the arena announcer proclaimed the Spartan the victor, the throng surged, but this time the cheers were devoid of disbelief or mockery. The aliens observing were really surprised to witness a human outsmarting one of their own. The galaxy's most intelligent warriors experienced an increased respect for humanity at that moment. The robust Spartan stood at the center of the arena, regaining his breath after his second victory as the crowd's energy surged. Transformed once more, no longer derisive, no longer derisive, no longer simply inquisitive, they had now become. The atmosphere was charged with tangible tension and keen anticipation. It was evident to all that the Spartan was not merely an ordinary human destined for failure. He was distinctly exceptional. The test was imminent. The arena's overseers acted swiftly thereafter. The challenger was already equipped, and this would be the most perilous yet. The sound of heavy footfall reverberated across the arena as the next opponent appeared. This warrior was a Gorthan, a distinct species. Renowned for its unparalleled size and ferocity, the Gorthan was a colossal bastion of muscle, overshadowing the Spartan, and armor, its colossal hands grasping a weapon like a battering ram rather than a sword. The crowd erupted in applause. The Gorthan had a reputation for swiftly and decisively vanquishing their adversaries, devoid of any refinement. Approach solely reliant on brute force, which they perceived as the singular determinant of success. Ultimately, the alien spectators recognized that this combat would be distinct if the Spartan had triumphed over his prior adversaries by cunning and precision. However, this would not be the case here, as the Gorthan was not. Interested in astute strategies, he was present to conquer and to dominate. Eliminate the Spartan, who remains composed, despite the imposing stature of his sleek armor. The nimble figure appeared practically delicate when juxtaposed with the Gorian's robust physique, prompting the alien warrior to snort in disdain. The humans before him acknowledged that the battle against the Gorthan was already concluded. All he needed to do was deliver a single strike, and the match would be his. The Gorthan swiftly advanced with determination. At a velocity commensurate with Dealey's stature, the ground quaked beneath him as he charged towards the Spartan, as the throng observed, with bated breath awaiting the inevitable collision. But the Spartan was always prepared. As the Gorthan swung his colossal weapon, he moved swiftly and purposefully to evade it. The alien's weapon narrowly missed its target, impacting the earth with sufficient force to create a crater, eliciting gasps from the crowd. The Spartan evaded what ought to have been a devastating strike, yet the Gorthan was undeterred and swung once more. Each attack arrived with increasing speed and fury, accompanied by a roar that reverberated with immense force. In the arena, the Spartan was compelled to adopt a defensive stance, his motions a blur as he evaded and parried. Yet with each missed strike, the Gorian's frustration intensified. His assaults were increasingly erratic. The Spartan recognized that he could not sustain this indefinitely, as the Gorthan was too formidable. Powerful yet unyielding, a single misstep or moment of indecision could lead to total failure. He required a strategy, one that would exploit the Gorthan's might against him. As the Gorian swung once again, Spartan advanced aggressively, opting to charge forward rather than evade, so entering the Goran's range. The abrupt change surprised the alien, and for the first time the Spartan struck. It was not a forceful hit. The Spartan's spear discovered a breach in the Goran's armor, a minor susceptible point. Beneath the shoulder, the Gorthan emitted a grunt of pain, but did not waver. He swung once more, this time with more ferocity, but the Spartan was already maneuvering, evading capture before the Gore could deliver a blow. An alien multitude observed in astonishment. How could a human, so diminutive and delicate, remain upright? In the face of such formidable strength, victory appeared unattainable nonetheless. As the conflict unfolded, they began to perceive the reality. The Spartan was not merely evading for survival, he was exhausting the Gorthan. Each unsuccessful assault and misstrike depleted the alien's energy. The Gorthan was formidable, yet his power had waned. The Spartan, in contrast, exhibited patience and acted only when required. Each strike was swift and exact, intended to gradually diminish his adversary's strength. The Gorthan's frustration intensified with this effort. His errors caused the alien's swings to become slower and more laborious, diminishing their former efficiency. The impenetrable defense began to disintegrate. The Spartan never afforded him an opportunity to recuperate, consistently remaining just out of reach. Perpetually poised to act at the opportune moment, the Gorthan ultimately committed his irrevocable mistake. In a frantic effort to conclude the conflict, he elevated his formidable weapon, poised to strike with maximum force. Had departed, although the Spartan had anticipated this moment with a surge of velocity. He advanced, slipping beneath the Gorthan's uplifted arms, and thrust his spear deeply into the alien's vulnerable side. Goran's anguished cry reverberated across the arena as he stumbled backward, grasping his injury. The Spartan acted without delay. Exploited his opportunity by executing a succession of rapid, lethal blows against the weakened form of the alien Gorthan. The once confident warrior now fought to maintain his footing amidst the mob. Those who had been so assured of Goran's strength observed in astonished silence as the giant knelt. Did not strike the fatal blow. He stepped back, lowered his spear, and waited. Gorthan, gasping and bleeding, glanced up at his opponent for a moment. It appeared as if the conflict could persist. The Gorthan ultimately relinquished his sword with a profound sigh. The war was concluded. The arena erupted in a cacophony of applause and bewilderment. The Spartan had once again triumphed. Beat the odds, he confronted an adversary significantly greater and more powerful than himself. Had emerged victorious, but more significantly, he had done so with honor, skill, and a remarkable degree of patience. An unexpected resolve from a human when the Oran was removed, leaving the Spartans isolated at the center of the arena, victorious once more. The crowd is now fully cognizant of what the spectators applauded, not only for the conflict but also for the fighter himself. Spartan had unequivocally demonstrated that humanity was a formidable force. The extraterrestrials who had before derided and ridiculed mankind now observed in astonishment, realizing they had miscalculated their capabilities. For an extended duration, the Spartan turned and commenced walking towards the gates, his actions exhibiting tranquility and composure. He had confronted 3 adversaries, each progressively more perilous than the preceding one, and had triumphed. Victorious, although this was not solely about triumphing in a series of wars, it was about demonstrating to the galaxy what humans are capable of. And at that instant, the Spartan had accomplished precisely that. The arena had descended into a silence, the type that precedes the most significant moments. The Spartan had triumphed 3 times. Each successive victory becomes increasingly unattainable, originating as a mere jest. The Galactic Assembly had transformed into a legend manifesting before their gaze. Nonetheless, it was evident to all that this was not concluded. The Spartan had merely demonstrated his capabilities, had undermined the fundamental beliefs regarding humanity. However, now the ultimate test loomed before the gathering. The Spartan must have been aware of what was forthcoming, as every animal in the galaxy possessed a singular champion who transcended all others, a fighter instilling fear even among their adversaries. This was the moment everyone had anticipated, the ultimate confrontation that would solidify the fate of the Spartans. The final opponent appeared from the shadows, taller and more formidable, signifying either his ascent or decline. Menacing and exuding lethal precision, the champion of champions entered the arena, the Spartans. The battle-worn armor appeared inferior to the sleek advanced gear. This opponent was no ordinary warrior. The foreign crowd acknowledged him. The Urkan warlord, undefeated in numerous fights and a master of every the Uran, did not advance hastily in the battle technique throughout the known galaxy. It was unequivocal in his mind, and that of the onlookers, that this would be the pivotal confrontation. When others had underestimated the Spartan, this warlord would not repeat that error. His cold, calculating eyes absorbed every feature of the human before him. He understood that mere brute power and speed would be insufficient. Must deconstruct the Spartan incrementally, exhausting him until he is entirely diminished, yet the Spartan remained steadfast as ever. Silent, his stance resolute, his eyes obscured by his visor. If he experienced fear, it remained concealed. There was no indication that he sensed the burden of the crowd's expectations. He did not exhibit it. His grip tightened little on his spear and shield were the sole instruments that had aided him in every battle thus far. Urine's weaponry were of a distinct nature, more sophisticated and lethal than those of his twin. The blades radiated electricity, their edges capable of slicing through the most resilient metals. Without uttering a word, the warlord initiated the combat. His moves were rapid, surpassing those of any adversary the Spartan had encountered. He swiftly closed the space, his blades a whirl of lethality. Precision, yet the Spartan shield was present, absorbing the early hits and deflecting each assault with expertise. Expertise, it was a dance, a contest of timing and control. The warlord moved with the precision of it. The storm was relentless and unpredictable, yet the Spartan remained unyielding. The crowd observed in anticipation as the two warriors engaged in combat. There was no margin for error. A single misstep would result in total failure. However, the Spartan was not seeking errors. He was observing, learning, and calculating. The Urine might have been. The speedier entity may have possessed more modern weaponry, but the Spartan had an advantage: his experience. Confronting insurmountable challenges, he possessed the determination of someone unwilling to be defeated, regardless of the adversary, the Urkin. The warlord intensified his assaults, resulting in a flurry of sparks. While his blades collided with the Spartan shield repeatedly, this was not merely a contest of strength but also of speed. The warlord was assessing the Spartan, searching for any vulnerabilities. He was slow and meticulous, awaiting an exploitable opening. At the moment to deliver the ultimate blow, the Spartan was aware, having experienced numerous wars. Similar to previous instances where each second seemed to stretch into eternity, where triumph might be attained or forfeited in a moment, and thus he waited, his body fatigued, his armor damaged, yet his intellect remained acute. He could perceive the warlord's strategies, sense the cadence of the battle, and when the opportune moment arose, he would strike. The conflict persisted as the crowd sensed a shift. The Urkin attacks, though still fierce, were changing. The warlord anticipated the conflict would have concluded by this point. He had expected the human to falter in precision, collapse beneath the immense pressure of his attack. Yet the Spartan remained unyielding. He was present, steadfast and combatant. When it occurred in the midst of during the warlord's assault, there was a momentary pause, a mere fraction of a second, when his guard faltered slightly. The Spartan executed a rapid, precise maneuver without hesitation. Advanced, thrusting his spear at the warlord's vulnerable flank. He just had time to respond. His blade rose to deflect the strike, but it was too late. The Spartan spear penetrated. Through his armor, Mark discerned the crowd's astonishment at the urination. He staggered backward, his hand reaching for the wound in his side, blood black and foreign. Thick liquid began to flow, staining the ground, yet the Spartan did not advance to deliver the final blow. Remained motionless, spear in hand, observing the warlord's battle to maintain his footing. The urine was not yet complete, he bellowed. In a fit of rage, Fury executed one more desperate assault, but the Spartan was prepared. In a smooth motion, I sidestepped the hit, raising my shield to destabilize the warlord, causing him to fall to one side. His knee buckled, his strength ultimately failing, while the spectators stood in stunned stillness observing the event. The Spartan loomed over the vanquished champion. A fatal strike was unnecessary, as the conflict had concluded. The arena, previously resonating with mockery and derision at the mere notion of a human warrior, was now filled with an austere quiet enveloped the scene. No one could dispute the occurrence that had just transpired among humanity. The underestimated species, previously ridiculed, accomplished the improbable, conquered the most formidable warriors the galaxy presented. Achieving this with honor, skill, and the unyielding determination compelled the Spartan to turn his back on the warlord and commence his departure. He had nothing left to demonstrate. His winds had communicated more profoundly than any words could convey. As he approached the exit, the silence of the throng transformed into resounding, thunderous cheers that reverberated. The fundamental principles of the arena, long deemed feeble and inconsequential by humanity, had demonstrated their strength that day. Not by means of technology or physical force, but through the indomitable spirit of a solitary warrior who steadfastly refused to be defeated, the galaxy suddenly comprehended what it had long disregarded as the Spartan stood. At the departure of the arena, the echoes of the roaring crowd continued to reverberate across the expansive expanse he had not won. Merely the conflicts, yet the esteem of the entire galaxy, what begun as derision and skepticism, had evolved into in a state of wonder and admiration. The same voices that had derided him upon his arrival were now acclaiming his name, yet the Spartan he did not linger on it. Victory was not his objective. Survival, honor, and the relentless pursuit were paramount. The human spirit was what he fought for. As the doors closed behind him, the reality of what had just occurred began to unfold. Establish a presence throughout the galaxy. News would disseminate rapidly to every corner of the universe would recognize that a human had confronted the greatest champions and triumphed, marking a significant victory for humanity after a prolonged period. They would be regarded not as a feeble and inconsequential race, but as a formidable power. The Uran warlord now, defeated and humbled, he was escorted out by his own kind despite being battered. The warlord fought with all his might, and in his loss, there emerged an unusual respect for humanity. Who had surpassed him? It was a respect that arises alone from battles forged in the crucible of conflict and earned through shared experience. The warlord, a veteran of numerous battles, had encountered his occurrence in a person that he never deemed feasible, yet there was none resentment in his defeat, accompanied by a reluctant recognition of the Spartan prowess. As the crowd gradually dispersed in the arena, the air was filled with discussions about the spar. No one anticipated this conclusion. The alien species, many of whom had regarded humanity with disdain for generations, were compelled to reevaluate what they understood. They had observed a human not merely endure but flourish in a deliberately constructed arena. To subjugate the weak, the Spartans accomplished this utilizing just archaic weaponry, a composed disposition, and an unwavering determination. Yet, the ramifications of the Spartans' victory were already unfolding beyond the arena. Resonating around the galaxy, leaders, warlords, and diplomats commenced to observe that the balance of power has shifted, however marginally. For the first time in centuries, humanity had asserted its presence on the galactic arena. The lesson was unequivocal: humans should not be underestimated. They possess formidable willpower, resilience so formidable that even the most dominant species could not dismantle it, rendering them perilous within the halls of power. Discussions commenced, with some perceiving the Spartans' victory as a threat, indicative of the potential resurgence of humanity. Confront the established norms, some perceived it as an opportunity to collaborate with a species that demonstrated unforeseen potential, regardless of the stance. Was convinced that humanity was no longer imperceptible to itself. The impact was significant. They had been battling for existence on their home planet, striving to establish their identity themselves amid aliens that had long since attained interstellar supremacy. The galactic arena represented their sole opportunity to demonstrate their value. They accomplished this in the most dramatic manner imaginable. The Spartans' victory emerged as a symbol of hope, a call to action for those who believed in humanity's capacity to compete on equal terms with the galaxy's elite. The Spartan was indifferent to all of this. He had not entered the arena to establish a reputation or to alter the galaxy. He battled for the landscape because it was imperative. It was his training's purpose, his destined purpose. The conflicts and triumphs were but components of his quest was not to revel in glory, but to bear the burden of his people's aspirations, even amid adversity. Against insurmountable odds, as he navigated the passageways, the Spartans' mind was already concentrated on the forthcoming events. The contests in the arena had concluded. However, the conflict for humanity's position in the galaxy was merely commencing. Other obstacles and trials lay ahead. The Spartan, unwavering, understood the significance of strength, strategy, and endurance. He would confront them directly, just as he had confronted the gladiators in the arena, where the staff typically remained indifferent to the participants. Acknowledged the Spartan with respectful glances as he proceeded, recognizing his accomplishments. The Spartan did not acknowledge the gestures made. The focus remained on the journey ahead. The praises, the shouts, and the newfound recognition were merely background noise. The commotion was inconsequential to him. What was paramount was the job, which was never complete. Beyond the arena, the galaxy would persist in its rotation, and empires would ascend. Wars would be waged and alliances formed. Yet amidst it all, the Spartan's narrative would be recounted. His triumphs would attain legendary status, a saga transmitted among both humans and aliens. Similar, and with each narration, the theme would intensify. Humanity had merited its position in the galaxy not via technology or might, but through sheer will, and with unwavering determination. The Spartan advanced, his thoughts already strategizing for the impending combat, regardless of its kind. For a time, the arena had been a validating environment, but the true test resided beyond its confines. Humanity's destiny was at stake. Although uncertainty persisted, it was evident that they have a warrior capable of guiding them through any forthcoming hardships. The Spartan, ever resolute, would be prepared to confront the galaxy that once scorned humanity. They would never perceive them in the same manner again. What had began as a struggle for existence had evolved into something far more significant. The greater Spartan demonstrated humanity's potential to the universe, compelling the galaxy to confront this reality. With that revelation, the epoch of underestimating humanity concluded, and the Spartan vanished into the shadows. The galaxy observed, anticipating humanity's subsequent actions.